Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is the first day back to school for my kids, and for me, the first day of school kind of represents the beginning of fall. I know technically it's not fall, but it's close enough for me, and fall is one of my favorite times of the year. So this is kind of a twofold thing. First, I get to start with my fall colors and making some fallish type stuff, and it's the beginning of that series coming up. And secondly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show two different methods today of working with mica powders. The first one is applying it directly to the mold like you see me doing right now. And then the second way is just straight up pouring the colored resin directly into your mold. The colors that I'm going to be working with today are the Rolio mica powders in Scarlet and Tiger Orange, and then an unbranded coffee mica powder. So there's various reasons on why you may choose to put the mica powder directly onto your mold as opposed to just mixing it into the resin. By putting it directly onto your mold, you gain more control over where the color variations are. Everyone that's worked with resin knows that it kind of does what it wants to do, and that once you pour it, there's not a whole lot of control that you have over the blending and merging and movement that it does. Because when it cures, it pulls to the middle to and there's a lot of movement going on. So what I want to show is the different effects that you can get by applying it directly onto your mold versus just letting it do its own thing. So there are some challenges to doing it this way. One, when you're putting it on the brush and whatever, you can see as I'm doing it now that it kind of goes everywhere. Which can be challenging, especially if you're doing a mold. Like this one isn't horrible because it's just a simple mold. There's not a lot of detail to it. But if you're doing something that has a lot of intricate um, grooves and designs and stuff like that, it can get a little tricky getting it cleaned off of so that you don't have the excess mica powder everywhere. Um, I mean, it's easy enough to clean off. It does take some time though, and what you need to um go into this knowing is that once it's applied, unless you wipe it off, it's going to be there. So I can't blend like the orange into the brown here. I can't necessarily blend it together because once it's on the orange or once the orange is on it, it's on it. So it's not going to just come off and the brown's not going to overtake it. So if I put brown over that orange, it's just going to be orange. It's just I'm just going to have excess mica powder floating over it once I pour my resin later on. So the cool thing about doing it this way though is that you can do many different color variations based on, for instance, just in this one, just based upon the three colors that we're using, depending on the color that I pour in the background. Now, if I want it to be really, really light, then I can put a white background on it and it's going to kind of pastel those colors down. If I want it to be more bold and vivid, um, then I can put down, as you'll see later on, I can pour some of the colors that I'm using. Or if I want it to be like a deeper color, put black on. Now, obviously, depending on the kind of mica that you use will depend on the results that you get. If you're using chameleon colors, for instance, they appear better and more vibrantly with a black or dark background. So it all depends on what you're going for. Now, for me, for the one that I colored the mold on, I want it to be a smooth look. That's what I want. It's not what I'm going to get, but it's what I want. And generally speaking, it's what you would get if you don't do what I did. So when you are pouring it, if you've ever just poured straight mica powder, it's got that shimmery look to it, right? That's what mica powder is. Um, and when it cures, it can leave like not striations, but just different designs, for lack of a better word, if you will, on it. However, I've found that if you put the mica down on the silicone first, even if you use the same exact colors that you painted with, it'll give it more of a smooth finish. So it looks like it's one solid piece and you don't get those designs or whatever from the shimmer in the mica powder. That's the look I'm going for with that one. Now, mixing the resin, doing the same colors, because we're going to pour them in the same order. That's the whole experiment, right? To show you guys what the difference is. Um, So I knew I didn't want my colors vivid. I wanted them a little bit more autumny, a little bit more kind of darker, deeper colors. Don't do what I did. Don't just randomly throw dark colors in without knowing what the hell you're doing. It would have been smarter because they came out. Yeah, don't do this. They came out a lot darker than what I wanted. Don't be like me. Um, Mix it up, and then if you're using the same color, like I was already using the brown. I didn't need to add brown into it. I could have just after I mixed it added a tiny bit of brown at a time until I got the color that I desired. Instead, I ended up with these darker colors that weren't exactly what I wanted. Um and I had to end up mixing a lot more of the red and the orange and to try and brighten it up. It just it didn't work right. So now I'm gonna mix for what seems like an eternity to get these colors where I want them to try and brighten up the ones that I screwed up on. Um, and then when we pour them, we're gonna pour them in the same kind of pattern that I put the mica on the silicone with, and so we can see how the movement of the resin affects what the piece looks like at the end. So now it's time to pour the resin. It's all mixed up. I got the colors the best that I can get them. I mean, there's just it is what it is at this point with them. Now again, pouring in the same order that I have the colors on the other one applied in the mica powder. But you can see already how the resin's running all over the place, right? So there's no control as much as I want it to be, and I can try and kind of shift it by the way that I'm pouring it so that it's not, if I poured the brown right in the middle like that, it would just take over the whole entire piece. So I'm trying to keep it as split up as I can, but you can see it's doing what it wants to do. Like it's already doing what it wants to do. There is no control, not much. Um, so right now I'm just filling it up, trying to keep it as even as possible. Again, I don't have a lot of control over the where the colors are. Not like I do in the other piece. So I'm just going to continue to fill up this mold, and then I'm going to go around with my dotting tool, and very carefully I'm going to go around the edges with it to prevent the air bubbles from sticking down there. They tend to stick in these molds a lot, I've noticed, especially around that inside lip. Doing it is a little tricky, trying not to mix the colors up, so you kind of got to do it color by color and not push it around too hard. Otherwise, everything's just shifting. I mean, you can see it happening anyway, and I am being careful. I mean, it's sped up for you guys, so you don't have to watch how long it actually takes me. But I am being careful, and I am moving actually quite slowly, and it's still moving around. But it does need to be done. Otherwise, like I said, bubbles like crazy, and that's not what I want. All right, so this one's about done. On to the next one. Now, this is where I screw up just a little bit. Had some leftover clear resin. Decided that since I had to put so much freaking mica powder in there to begin with because, of the debacle I had earlier, that all I would need to do is just add the clear resin to the colored resin, mix it up a little bit. It'd be fine. I mean, I painted over the silicone mold with mica anyway, so it's not a big deal, right? Wrong. As you'll see later on. I mean, it would have worked had I taken the time and mixed it up thoroughly and not did what I did. So, in doing this, um, if you're going to add clear to your already colored resin, I highly recommend you mix it really well, like probably for another couple of minutes. I guess I was rushing. I don't know. I didn't notice that it hadn't thoroughly mixed with any of the colors. Um, so it kind of makes thing, this whole comparison kind of moot to an extent. To an extent. I still think you can see what I'm talking about, but it does change the look of how it should look once it's poured. So in this piece in particular, it doesn't necessarily matter how I pour it because I have those colors on there anyway. So right now, what I'm doing is I am squishing around where the lips are for the tray. I don't want to go in there with my tool because if I go in there and I scrape along those edges, I'm going to scrape off all that mica powder that I painted onto there. don't want to do that. So I took the time, I went around really, really well, um, to get out any bubbles that were caught and trapped along that lip. Again, you see me just kind of pouring the colors in here. This doesn't matter. The part that mattered was the part that I didn't mix up the clear resin into the colored resin enough. That's what's going to make the difference in the finished piece. Um, Honestly, this is just for whatever. I don't know. It's just to fill the mold, quite honestly. Maybe give a little design to the back of the tray and kind of show how the color and how the resin moves. Because if you look at it, even now, you can see that brown. I poured the red and the orange over top of it, but you can see that brown moving in and closing into the middle over top of those other two colors. Um, so we're just going to go through right now. I'm just kind of swirling it around a little bit to make a design, see if it stays. It's not going to, but because like I said, it moves so much. Um, Gonna hit it with a torch and then let it dry. Now this is 24 hours later. They're dry. The top one on your screen is the one that I painted with the mica powder, and the bottom one is the one that we just poured the colors in. And you can see just on the back alone how that brown completely covered up the other two colors. Like they're gone now. So this is what I'm talking about in the movement of the resin. Um, And here, if you look at it, all of that design that's in there, that's where I didn't mix my clear resin into the colored resin properly. Um, had I done that, it would have been solid colors with the solid lines where I put the mica powder on the silicone. Now, in this piece, you can see how that brown still pushed over into where the orange is. It kind of did what it wanted to do and it moved, and the lines aren't as crisp. Even with that background on the one that I put the mica powder down on the silicone, you can still see the clear where those lines should be. They weren't very straight, but they were there and they stayed. On the other piece, it just moved around however it wanted to. So this is where painting on your molds kind of can come in handy if you want certain things to look a certain specific way. All in all, I mean, they did come out pretty. I still think my favorite is that top one. And right here, I'm just showing you. So this is a piece that I painted in the orange first. And then all I did was mix orange into it. It's the same orange that I used on the trays. And you can see it's got just a more solid, sleek finish as opposed to the finish on the tray that's off in the corner where you can see like the patterns that I was telling you about in the mica powder. So now I just want to kind of dress up this one a little bit. I want to put a couple tattoos on. So I'm just cutting it around so that you don't get so much of that the glue or whatever adhesive they use to put on it. Um and then I'm picking the spot that I want it, sticking it upside down, put a little water on it, let it sit for a few seconds and slide it off. And then as always with temporary tattoos, no matter if you put them in on your mold, which you can do before you pour the resin, or if you put them on afterwards, you do need to put a top coat on. It doesn't have to be anything thick and crazy, just something thin to kind of seal those in. Otherwise, they will be sticky. That's normal for tattoos. Um, right now I'm just applying the water. But yeah, this piece is by far, I like this a lot more, even with those weird kind of patterns that you get from the resin not being mixed in properly. I would have liked it a lot more had it been the solid that I was going for. Um, but all in all, it's not horrible. But this was just really to demonstrate the differences that you get with putting it on your mold versus just straight pouring the colors on. So now I've let them set, so I'm about to pull them off. Boy, is it taking me forever. There we go. Come on, you can do it. I'm terrified because I don't work with tattoos very often, and anytime that I've ever tried to put them on my kid's skin or whatever, I've always pulled them off too soon and completely destroyed them. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of dab off the excess water that's on them, and then I'm going to let it dry for 24 hours, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put a top coat over top of them. Very, very thin. Like when I mean just a little bit and very thin, I mean I want enough that it's going to obviously touch all the edges, and when it cures, I don't want it to shrink up and give me that kind of lip around the side because it does shrink a little bit. But I also don't want to put so much in that it's not going to be a tray anymore because there's hardly any space in between the bottom of the tray and the top of the sides anyway. Um, so just a little bit, just enough to cover. And here we are 24 hours later, and I'm just kind of putting it over just to seal these in so that we don't have any issues with them coming off. And you can see I'm just kind of spreading it out. So as I finish this up, I want to let you guys know some exciting changes that are going to be coming to my channel in the near future. I am going to add a day here coming up soon where I'm doing some non-resin related, I like crafty things. Um, Days for resin are Mondays and Thursdays. That's not going to change. That'll stay the same. We're going to continue on the resin journey because, again, it is something that I have deeply fallen in love with. But there are some other ideas that I have that I think are cool, and I want to show them to you guys too without taking away from why you guys have decided to follow me in the first place. And hopefully you'll like these ideas as well, and we'll get some value out of it. Um, so yeah, so it's something that I'm super excited about, and I really can't wait to get going on that. Don't know what day of the week yet it's going to post, but I will let you guys know soon. I just want to say thank you guys for watching me, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I will catch you in the next one. Love you. Bye.